Here.
Here, everyone please rise, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everyone please be seated. Before we move to adopt the agenda, I'd propose that we have two changes, to the agenda, and that is to remove two items. Unfortunately, our recreation director is ill, tonight, and so I propose to take off tonight, put it on the next meeting, the agenda for Community Day rides contract and the other one for recreation fee schedule. Do I have any objection to that?
No, not at
No
all.
objections. I
Okay,
make that
then.
amended motion.
Okay, there's a
Second.
motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. So now, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is a motion to acknowledge the minutes of January 9th, 2023.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Before we start the meeting, I just want to wish everyone, especially our residents in the community who recognize, celebrate the Lunar New Year's. That's a large number in our community of various peoples in the Chinese and Sinic world. This is the year of the rabbit. In the Vietnamese world, it's the year of the cat. So the cat is excluded from the Chinese zodiac for some strange reason, but the Vietnamese view as very important creatures. So I want to, wish everyone a year of prosperity, good health, hope, which are characteristics of the rabbit. So thank you. Happy New Year's. We'll have another resolution as we always strive to recognize the diversity in our community later on tonight, designating February as Black History Month. So right now, the next item is to bring back into session the public hearing that was adjourned previously a couple of times. Do I have a motion to open the public
I'll
hearing?
make a motion to open it.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. So if anyone has, as we reopen this public hearing, if anyone has any comments specifically related to the motion, the legislation to repeal the law, this is related to the appeal. There's no discussion tonight with respect to the principal concern ultimately of whether or not to build any development on Cedar Hill, but this is solely related to the issue of repeal of the legislation. Yes, please.
Hi, Amy Bombardieri for
Hi, Bob.
Mid-Hudson Development Corp., the applicant with the proposal in front of the board prior to the repeal of the local law. We had a public meeting yesterday, an informal meeting with neighbors, and we showed them the potential layout with single-family homes versus the design development. The design development has 100 acres.
I'm sorry, but is this talking about the repeal
Yes,
legislation?
yes, I'm gonna get there.
Stay to the repeal.
So
okay.
the 100 acres the 100 acres of open space was likable by all of the attendees at the meeting. And by repealing the law, you limit the amount of open space versus an as-of-right subdivision. So I think that by repealing the law without looking at the application in front of you at the same time through the seeker process, it's not a complete seeker review.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
I want to just remind everyone that the purpose of the board here is really legislative fact-finding with respect to this piece of legislation that's here tonight. So what we're trying to do is obtain facts relevant that can go into any decision-making, any rule-making that we have. Each time you legislate, then you need to state certain reasons for that legislation. So I just want to explain to everyone what we're doing, particularly people that are watching from afar, because I get a lot of questions on that. So I want to do it. Thank you, Amy. Next, anybody else with comments? Please come up, identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Rich
Richard Cullen, and I live at 374 Cedar Hill Road. And I was one of the people that did attend the meeting yesterday in Wardle Kill that was provided. And, well, much closer? Is that better? Yeah. I just want to say that I attended the meeting. There wasn't very many people that did attend the meeting. But for this woman to say that the majority of the people that were in there, I was in there with my wife, and we do not agree with it. And in fact, the way it was presented is they showed two drawings, the apartment drawing and then also single-family homes, 90-plus homes that could be put there if they don't get their way. So in my wife's opinion, she felt that it was like they have us over a barrel. In my opinion, it feels like we're being strong-armed into this. Either we get the apartments or we're going to put 90 houses all over the...
So do you have an opinion on the legislation to favor repeal or not?
I believe that you should repeal it.
Okay, thank you. More comments? Any more comments, please?
Good evening. My name is Bernadette Bodie. I live in the neighborhood there. I'm opposed to allowing developers to circumvent the zoning regulations that have been established. There are various parcels that have been zoned R40 or R80, which have been earmarked for certain density of development. And having the ability to circumvent that by finding a loophole is not in the best interest of the community. And therefore, I urge you to repeal that piece of legislation that's on the agenda for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Good evening. LaPerche, 312 Old Hopewell. We actually are a direct neighbor to the project that is being proposed. I don't believe that there has been enough information provided to the citizens to actually make a conscious decision as to why we are repealing this code at this point. The code was established for a reason many, many years ago. It was revisited in 2010. And I would ask that the town board consider tabling this matter until we can actually be informed about responsible development instead of making a rash decision. This code was developed for some reason back in the day, but I don't think it's been expressed to us as a community as to why. We want responsible development. Developers are actually discussing the possibility of providing a large parcel of property for open space, which I think is important. We're not going to stop development in our community. It's better to know the devil you're next door to than the devil you don't know. So again, I'm all for agricultural, but I'm also up for responsible development. I've discussed this opportunity with the developers, and again, being a direct neighbor, we are impacted by it because our property is agricultural in nature. I just want to be sure that before we take this code and get rid of it, it doesn't affect not only this project, but others to come.
Thank you, Doug. Any other comments?
My name's Kenneth M. Stenger. I'm counsel to the applicant. And I have some comments to address exactly to the process in which this board is engaged. First of all, I appreciate the fact that this was adjourned, so I had the opportunity to recover from my medical
Are you doing
moment
well?
to be here. Yes, I am well, and
Thanks. Good.
that's often a mixed blessing for someone in the room. But the thing, I really liked what was just said, which was, do we have enough information to make a final decision on this tonight? And all I can look to see what information you have is the record of the public hearing that occurred beforehand. We know that there is people who will come up and say, I'm for this, I'm opposed to this. I think what you have done tonight is focused the question very clearly. Speak to me about the facts that have to be determined to say whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea to repeal this statute, because, quite frankly, I know that each and every one of you are responding to constituent concerns on a number of levels, and that's what you're supposed to do. But this process also requires an exacting finding of fact by you as a predicate to making any decision here. And I was here for the last public hearing. And I was here now. I've read the record. And I would strongly suggest to you that you don't have enough information, or you have not considered enough information to make this decision tonight. You will want to make this important decision, and you will want to get it right. You will not want to be in a courtroom. It's not me, please, I promise you, saying, if you don't give me what I want, I'm in a courtroom. But that's what happens when we don't get it right. So I looked at, you have to do two things tonight. You have to look at your EAF. You have to look at your environmental finding. You have to say there's a negative impact if you vote to repeal this. And you're prepared to do that. It says so in the resolution that you've published. And I've looked at that, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a good place to start. Where are the facts that support this? Decisions that you're prepared to make. And I start with saying that, in my opinion, because you have an application in front of you that shows for the first time how this statute can work, you have to measure the impact of how it might work against it being appealed. You can't just make the decision in a vacuum and say, thumbs up, thumbs down, because you have a real-time, real-life example of what it looks like, and you can decide against what it looks like. You can say, I don't like it, but you have to recognize it exists. And you have to make it part of your side-by-side analysis. It has to be part of your equation of decision here. Because when you go through this, you can look at this and you can say, let's go through this. Addendum to Part 1 of the EAF. The proposed action will not have a significant adverse environmental respect. Number 4, the proposed action will not have a significant and adverse environmental impact with respect to new or additional use of groundwater, and will not have a significant impact with respect to the introduction of contaminants in road water. Okay. In the abstract, you might say that's true. But the reality is you have an application in front of you that demonstrates the contrary. That demonstrates 100 acres of forever green property, never to be developed so long as this town is in charge of it. Tell me that is not an alternative to what is now permitted by zoning that you must consider. I don't tell you what you should decide, but you must consider. Talk about contaminants. We're talking about an as-of-right roadbed of how many miles, as opposed to the miles that are proposed by this application. Again, that is a fact that you don't have to find that it's desirable, but you need to consider it. And so before you can say that fewer roads don't create more contamination, you have to consider the existence of fewer roads. I've jotted just down a few more, and I don't want to beat this point to death, but when you go through your EAF, take a look at number 9. The proposed action will not have a significant adverse environmental impact on any scenic or aesthetic resource. There's 100 acres proposed to be forever green that's permitted under this statute. If you're going to repeal this statute, you will repeal the possibility of that 100 acres. You can do that, but you have to identify it as a fact. You have to say, here's why I've decided that's not a negative impact to lose that opportunity. Same when you go to paragraph 11. Paragraph 11 is right on point. You will vote, if you adopt this resolution, you will adopt the following finding of fact. The proposed action will not have a significant adverse environmental impact with respect to the loss of recreational opportunities or respect to a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any municipal open space plan. All right, well, you have a fact in front of you. I realize that application is not before you for consideration this evening, but it is a fact. It's a proposal. It's a real thing. It says, if you allow me to operate under this statute, I will set aside 100 acres forever to be green. Now, you have to consider that fact before you vote yes on number 11. And you may say, you know what, I don't believe that fact. That fact's not true. That's just another developer's pipe dream. But if it is a real fact, you have to consider it. And you can't just sit there and say, repealing this is going to change that. And again, you go to number 13. This is another statement that you are proposed this evening to vote, to adopt as a finding of fact. I will read it. The proposed action will not have a significant adverse environmental impact on existing transportation systems. Well, you have what's proposed. You have what is proposed, which is about 25% of the road construction that will be available for approval if we develop this land under current and existing traditional zoning. And again, it's just a fact, but you can't ignore it. It's part of this record. And considering that fact, you're not approving the application. You're just doing what you have to do to repeal this zoning. The last thing is paragraph 19. Let me read it out loud. This is what you're going to do. You're going to make as a finding of fact. You're going to say, if you repeal this tonight, you're going to say the proposed action will not have a significant adverse environmental impact on the supply of housing in this town. Now, this application proposes a unique mix of single-family dwellings and multifamily housing, whether it's an apartment or a condominium. It's kind of neighborhood transitional, right? Grandparents and their kids in the same neighborhood. But it's proposed. It's possible under the existing statute. It is a fact that you can do that. And it is a fact that you can do that in a manner that will protect the values of people who live in existing residential homes or in that neighborhood, in which this application is situate. I have proposed that. You have a letter where the multifamily housing would be buffered from any single-family dwelling housing that is there. These are all facts. There is a fact that says if we were to proceed under the statute with that application, water will come to municipal water will be available at the boundary line of people who live in that neighborhood. My grandfather lived up there, Woodford Terrace, so I know Dorothy Lane and a few of those others. Last time I was here, people were up here saying, why are we going to give water to the developers when we need it? It's a fact that this project has the ability to bring that water to people up there. It's just a fact. If you're going to say, I am opposed to this, we need to overturn it, you have to consider that fact, and you need to explain why that fact is not important to this process. It's just what we do. It's what we have to do as lawyers and elected officials. We have to follow the law. That's the law. So now we go to the resolution of final approval. And I want to just close that section. I'm here arguing for my client. I'm not doing this in the abstract. I'm here to say something to help my client reach a dream it has for the development of this land. But too often, we talk about developers as if they are a problem rather than the engine locally that drives jobs and income for us all and provides housing so we can continue to be a living community. Because a community that's not growing in generations is a community that's going nowhere. So yes, I'm here for that reason. But the points I've raised with you, I think, are very important points. I am not telling you how to decide on those points. I'm just pointing out you have to identify them in your decision, consider them, and explain why they're either important or not important. And you can't do that on a vote that takes place in the next 10 minutes when I shut up, because you can't do it. And if you do it, you're opening yourself up to something you don't want to open yourself up to. Take your time and think through what I've asked you to think through. So let's finally go to the resolution. The resolution is a couple sentences, right? Does it say anything about why your resolution is consistent with the comp plan or not? Does it say anything about why your decision to repeal is better than the decision made by the planning board? I'm sorry, the county planning board or not? Does it say anything? Does it create any record at all of fact upon which you can stand in front of anybody and say, here's why I did it. Here are the reasons why I did it. Here's why I think in my job, honoring my oath and listening to my constituents, here are the facts upon which I determined that we needed to repeal this because it was best for the town. So none of that's in this record. And generally speaking, I think as a lawyer, you're supposed to let people kind of just leave themselves exposed. I'm not doing that. I'm asking you, please, to create the record. Deal with these facts. Don't vote tonight as if this is a reflex. This is not a political exercise. It can be, but I know almost all of you for years that it doesn't need to be. It needs to be thought through. And I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of the gentleman who spoke before me, but it really comes down to this. Do you know enough? Have you thought of all the facts? Have you considered everything? And if you have, where is the record of your thoughts? Where is the record of your deliberation? Where is your record of why you're doing this, other than what I see here tonight, which is none? I realize I've spoken way longer than I intended, but I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Before move to adjourn, Mr. Haran, I would, and if the board agrees, I would like to go into executive session to get your advice on what the record looks like. I mean, I think Mr. Stenger has raised points that we've discussed before, but, you know, I think we need some advice of council of what we need to do for that record. Board members, does that make sense?
Make that motion. I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second to go in executive session for the purpose of discussing, you know, what we need to do from a statement of facts. So we'll be back. Okay? Thank you. Yeah, so we can go down in the small conference room. We'll be back. Sorry.